Hey guys, how's it going? It's the Crypto Analyst here, and I hope all of you guys are having a good morning, evening, wherever you guys are from. And welcome back to another Bitcoin technical analysis. And with Bitcoin bouncing off the 200 EMA and showing consistent higher lows, a lot of people are looking to the 6K area to see if Bitcoin can push back up higher before maybe even testing the real resistance. But before we get there, we are seeing a little bit of rejection from previous support of this rising channel. So it's kind of this decision time where Bitcoin is kind of trying to find out if it wants to keep pushing up or if it's going to continue in a downtrend. So today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on where I believe Bitcoin's going and really how I'm approaching a situation like this one, because Bitcoin's been in a little bit of a sticky situation, kind of an awkward spot for just over a month now, and it hasn't been the most fun to trade, and I know a lot of people are really frustrated. So with that being said, if you guys are interested, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot, and let's go ahead and dive on into this. So with this, I think the most notable thing to highlight, first of all, is really this bounce off the 200 EMA, and with this showing consistent higher lows. Now, what this means is that, one, the 200 EMA is still a very relevant area. It's still going to be an area that's used as support. It's been used over here numerous times, and it's still going to be getting respected over here in this range. So with us bouncing off this and showing higher lows over here, we actually formed a little bit of a pennant in the short term, ended up breaking upwards out of that. Again, with that being kind of a bear flag sort of scenario, you have to remember that pennants, especially in a situation like this one, are a neutral formation and continuation pattern, and that it's really a 50-50 which way they break up. So yes, you do know that the price is getting squeezed in both higher lows and lower highs, but again, symmetrical triangles are one of the most neutral of the formation patterns. So with this breaking up here, what we've actually been able to do is kind of set up a nice little bear flag of sorts in this area. However, Bitcoin is looking strong, so it's not to say that because this is a bear flag, it cannot keep going upwards and that it can't disrespect that, because we have seen this, definitely in situations before. But I think that one thing that's very clear to highlight over here is that you do have a nice bear pull on the breakdown, and you can see as highlighted in the neon blue, if we go and delete this guy, you can see what's highlighted in the neon blue as another rising channel after a breakdown, which is, most easily classified as a bear flag. So with that being said, though, I think that you also can draw up a pennant of sorts if you kind of want to argue for the bulls, because what this would allow this to do actually is to have another neutral shot, or maybe even, leaning towards a bullish shot at actually breaking towards the upside over here. Again, it's a lot of this is going to be resting on whether or not Bitcoin can break the previous resistance level, I guess the previous support level now turned resistance of this, previous rising channel that we once had, now in a smaller rising channel below this one, really getting stuck in between the former support and now the 200 EMA. And so with us working in this region, I think everything's going to be kind of contingent upon if Bitcoin can break the support of this previous larger rising channel. And if it can, I think that Bitcoin can very, very certainly, not certainly, but very easily keep pushing higher from this region. So if Bitcoin can break this area of around $5,360, I do think that it can certainly keep on pushing higher. It's now above the 200 EMA. It's now above the 50 EMA. And so with it being above both of these, and if it can really get above its last major resistance before the 6K area, I think that it actually can certainly, push back upwards and hopefully get back into that $5,850 or even $6,000 area before seeing rejection. Because what that is, and if we actually go back up here and switch this to the daily chart, something that I want to highlight is that in this area you can actually see that this is one of the strongest areas of resistance that Bitcoin's ever had in its, really in its entirety and in its history. So when we go and we know that this is one of the most significant levels in resistance history of Bitcoin, it's going to be something that's very hard to break. Now, are we going to break that on our first try or not? Again, I think a lot of that is going to be contingent upon whether or not the golden cross is going to play out. Because if the golden cross is actually going to play out, I think that we and even Bitcoin has a really good shot at breaking and holding this 6K range if this golden cross is going to play through. However, if this golden cross ends up start rounding downwards and starts failing, I don't think that we're going to be able to break this with enough momentum on our first try. Just again, you saw this over the entirety of 2018 be a lot of resistance, and I think it's going to be one that will break eventually. I just think it might take a couple of tries to actually get through this thing. I mean, we see how many tries it took us to break downwards out of it. It might take an equal amount of tries, or maybe even less, or maybe more, to even break back upwards out of this. So that's just something that I'm keeping in mind and approaching in this area, is that I'm definitely more willing to short than I am to long in this area. Again, Bitcoin's very overextended, and one great or even Good run does not define an entire market trend. However, it certainly does look like it is trying to have a market reversal in the price action over here. Again, it's too really early to say any of this stuff. It's very bold statements. But I think in the short term, what a lot of people should be worried about is if the former support of this rising channel can break. Because if this former support can break, and this is something I was saying to the Patreons, there's really not that much stopping Bitcoin above here. I do have a couple targets set, at previous resistance levels and previous areas where I think are going to be significant, but besides that, I don't think that there's a lot of things holding Bitcoin back if it can actually break this current resistance level. So if you are a bull, this is really where you're trying to have your time to shine, because if Bitcoin can really break and hold above this level, I think it's actually going to be a really, really good thing, and I think Bitcoin can certainly keep pushing higher if that is the case. Now, one thing I am looking at is the RSI. I don't really think the MACD is telling us anything. It was looking like it was double bearish divergence, completely was a fake out, and the MACD, as I've said recently, just has not been a reliable tool lately. So that's why I haven't been talking about it as much. But over here on the RSI, I think there's something that is unique, is that you are following a relative trend. Now, this isn't a candle chart. We don't chart it like it's a candle chart. It is the RSI, which is the relative strength index. And what you can see is higher lows are really, so lower lows, lower highs, and in kind of this falling channel-esque sort of situation on the RSI. And so what I would imagine over here is that from us getting a lower swing high on the RSI, being both in the oversold area, I would imagine that this would actually end up getting somewhere up here and then actually rounding back downwards to go back into this oversold territory, probably in the not so distant future, and then ideally bounce off of this and actually have another big breakout. So my thoughts on this area is that it can really do one of two things. My first thought is that it can actually come down here, bounce off of one of these support lines, maybe that's the 200 EMA, and push higher, because I don't know if this thing's out of juice yet. Maybe it just sees ultimate rejection from previous support here and it really just breaks down. But I think that it definitely does have a good shot at continuing this upwards trend. However, if you do break below the 200 EMA and hold and really break below $5,000 strong enough, I think that that's going to be a very detrimental blow to Bitcoin, because if you're looking at over here, especially from a 4-day chart or even a 1-day chart, we can go ahead and switch this to the 1 day. But if we're looking at this from the 1-day chart and Bitcoin actually breaks below this $5,000 area over here, there is very little that it has to continge upon until it gets back to around $4,200. So yes, you do have your EMAs down here, which kind of can be a support range for the daily chart, but you really have no candle body forms of support anywhere in between like $4,800 and $4,200. So if Bitcoin was to actually break down pretty heavily below 5,000 or below 4,900, I think that it could be very, very volatile, very, very fast if it did want to break down, just because of the lack of support in this area, with the exception of the two EMAs being the 50 and the 200. Moving this back to the 4-hour, I don't want to make that sound too bearish, but again, it's really one of these contingent zones, because it looks like it really does want to move pretty heavily in one way. I think it's tired of consolidating, and that with this tired of consolidating mentality, it's ready to say, if it breaks this range, it's going to break down. It's going to, have probably a pretty nice breakout, and if it breaks this range over here, then it's probably going to have a pretty nasty breakdown. So it's one of these moments where a lot of people are kind of having all eyes on Bitcoin sort of thing. Again, I know a lot of people have been extremely frustrated. I can't tell you guys how many messages and how many people I've heard talk about it and see about people just being frustrated by trading in this zone. Experienced people, new people, intermediate people, literally, experts. So many people are so frustrated in trading in this zone. And something that you do have to remember is that you have to let the trades come to you. And if you don't like the area, you just simply don't trade it, because you trade what you're comfortable with, and that's usually what works out best at the end of the day. So that's just my 2 cents, and really kind of my strategy in this is that people will go, well, I haven't traded. I got a message from a Patreon a couple days ago, and he goes, well, I haven't traded in a couple days. It feels so weird. And I said, don't worry about that, because you want to make sure that the trades ultimately come to you, so you're not chasing the trades, because that's how you kind of get yourself in a sticky situation, at times. And it's easier to get yourself in a sticky situation when you go trade chasing instead of letting it come to you. So with that being said, that's really my 2 cents on how I'm handling this situation, and also really what my thoughts are on this current market condition. condition. So if you guys did enjoy, hit the like and subscribe button, as it does help out the channel a lot. I want to know your guys' thoughts. Are these two zones up here, the one top and the one bottom zone, really, are they the contingent zones to you to say whether or not Bitcoin's going to break out or break down? I want to know your guys' thoughts. I'm really excited about this area. I think that we're going to start getting some volatility pretty soon. But I want to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below, whether or not you guys are bullish or whether or not you guys are bearish. So let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next video.